He left no goodbye. Just 4 words, scrawled on the back of a grocery receipt. Talk to Dad. It's Liam. That's when I knew something was wrong. Because Jason hadn't spoken to our father in 20 years. And Liam was supposed to be his son. My name is Thomas. And this is the story of how my brother's disappearance led me to a truth someone spent years trying to bury. The day Jason vanished, I got a call from Hannah. She was crying, but not in the panicked, hysterical way you might expect when someone goes missing. No, this was quieter. Numb. Like her heart had already accepted he wasn't coming back. She said he'd packed up and left in the middle of the night. No warning. No note. Just gone. His toothbrush still in the cup. Half a tank of gas in his beat-up Camry. But his wallet and phone? Missing. I drove over. Liam was on the floor with a box of crayons, drawing something that looked like a truck or maybe a house. He looked up at me with those wide, familiar eyes, and for a second, I felt like I was looking at my own childhood photo. That's when the seed got planted. Not suspicion. Not yet. Just a ripple of something I couldn't name. A week passed. Then 2. No word from Jason. Cops said adults have the right to disappear. Unless there's evidence of a crime, they don't investigate. But I knew my brother. He was a mess. Impulsive. Broke more often than not. But he wouldn't leave Liam like that. He wouldn't just walk out without a reason. Especially not after everything he'd said about being better than Dad. Hannah kept saying she didn't understand it either. That he'd seemed distracted lately. Jumpy. Like he was carrying something he didn't want to say out loud. Then she handed me the note. I didn't ask why she waited, but I guess she saw the question on my face. I couldn't, she said. At first I thought it didn't mean anything. Just another cryptic Jason thing. And then, the longer I waited, the more I didn't know how to start. What if it broke everything? What if I was wrong? She swallowed hard. I was scared, Thomas. I still am. Ask him about Liam. For words. But one of them was wrong. Him. Not her. Not me. Not anyone obvious. That's when the real question started. I went to Mom's house the next day. She and Jason had always had a rocky relationship. Too similar, too stubborn. But in the last year, they'd gotten close again. Close enough that he'd moved back in for a while after his lease fell through. I asked if she'd seen the note. She froze. Didn't deny it. Didn't play dumb. Just stared at the wall and whispered, I was hoping you wouldn't find it. I didn't say anything. She let out a tired breath. I should have thrown it out, she said. But I couldn't. It was Jason's. And part of me thought, maybe you deserve to find it. Just not for me. That's when my stomach turned. Why? I asked. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. Like whatever she was carrying had aged her in months instead of years. Because some things, she said slowly, are buried for a reason. Then she stood up and walked into the kitchen, leaving me with a silence that felt like a dare. I started digging. Phone records. Old photos. Dates that didn't line up. I remembered the week Hannah got pregnant. Jason had just gotten out of a relationship. He wasn't seeing anyone. I remember that clearly because I had just broken up with someone too, and we'd spent that whole month drinking cheap beer on the porch, both of us feeling sorry for ourselves. And that was the same month Hannah and I, well, we weren't dating. But there was a night. One night. We never talked about it again. We'd chalked it up to grief. Loneliness. My ex had left. Her dog had died. We were both just drifting. But now, I was staring at a calendar from 3 years ago, and suddenly everything felt out of order. Liam had Jason's smile. Sure. But he had my eyes. I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to be the kind of man who went behind a grieving mother's back to test her child's DNA. But I had to know. So I did what no brother should ever have to do. I took a hair from Liam's baby brush, sent it to a private lab, and waited. 3 days later, the email came in. One sentence changed everything. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The boy everyone thought was Jason's was mine. And someone, maybe more than one someone, had known all along. I didn't tell anyone right away. Not Hannah. Not Mom. Not even my fiancée, Rachel. I just sat on the back steps of my house, phone in hand, reading that line over and over again until the screen dimmed on its own. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I wanted it to be wrong. To be a glitch. A misread sample. A cruel joke from the universe. But the truth doesn't care what you want. And this truth? It had been breathing in my house for 3 years without me even knowing it. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there next to Rachel, watching the ceiling, listening to her breath steady, peaceful. We'd been trying for a baby. Talking names, nursery colors, all of it. And now, I had a son. A living, breathing child I'd never tucked in, never kissed goodnight, Never held after a nightmare. Because someone, or someone's, made sure I didn't know. The question burned hotter with every passing hour. Why? Why the lie? Why the cover-up? And what the hell did Jason mean by ask him about Liam? Who was him? I saw Hannah the next morning. She looked tired, worn thin in that way people get when life keeps rearranging the furniture on them. She was folding Liam's laundry when I walked in. "Do you want coffee?" she asked, like nothing had changed. I almost said yes. Almost sat down and let her play house one more time. But then I looked at Liam's tiny socks, and something in me snapped. "I know," I said. Her hands froze mid-fold. "What?" "Liam," I said. "He's not Jason's." She didn't deny it, didn't pretend to mishear. She just sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't carry the weight of that truth anymore. "How long?" I asked. She stared at the floor. "Since the beginning," she whispered. She told me everything. Said she'd taken a test alone. Knew Jason wasn't the father. But when he found out she was pregnant, he stepped up, without even asking for proof. "I tried to tell him," she said. "I did. But he said it didn't matter. That he loved the baby already. That he wanted to be better than the dad who walked out on both of you." Her voice cracked. And then he looked at me and said, "Thomas doesn't need to know. It would break him. Let me be the one who stays." I couldn't breathe. Jason knew. He knew Liam was mine, and he still chose to raise him like his own. To protect me? Or to atone for something else? Did Mom know? I asked. Hannah hesitated. That's not mine to answer. Which meant yes. God, I thought. She knew. And Jason? He lived every day knowing that child called him Dad, while I walked around oblivious, playing uncle at cookouts, dropping off birthday gifts like some friendly outsider. The silence wasn't just a lie. It was a prison. And Jason locked himself in it without ever telling me why. I left without finishing my coffee. I drove straight to Mom's. She didn't answer the door. I let myself in. That's how it's always been, open door policy. But this time, it felt like I was breaking into something sacred. She was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters even though they were already spotless. "I know," I said. She didn't ask what. She just turned around, towel in hand, and gave me the saddest smile I've ever seen on her face. "I tried to stop him," she said. She told me Jason came to her right after Hannah's test confirmed it. Told her everything. Said he was scared, not of me, not of the responsibility, but of what it would do to our family, how it would shatter the fragile thing we just started rebuilding between us. "He felt like he owed you," she said, "for all the times he let you down. He said this was his chance to do something right." I was shaking. "You both let me live a lie," I said. "You were happy," she said. "You had Rachel. A new start. Jason didn't want to blow that up." "And what about Liam?" I asked. "What happens when he starts asking questions?" Her face crumpled. "I don't know," she whispered. I left without another word, not out of anger, but because if I stayed, I would have screamed. Or worse, cried. And I didn't want to give that pain a witness. I drove for hours. No destination. Just miles. Trying to understand how the people I loved most decided I didn't deserve the truth. And then a new thought hit me. What if Jason didn't just leave? What if someone made sure he disappeared? He'd left that note. Ask him about Liam. If not me, and not Mom, then who? That night, I pulled out an old box of Jason's things he'd left in my garage years ago. Random junk, guitar picks, ticket stubs, a half-filled notebook. Tucked inside was a receipt. A dinner. 2 weeks before he vanished. At a restaurant he couldn't afford. Signed by a name I hadn't seen in years. Mark Hastings. Our father. The man who left us when we were kids. The man Jason swore he'd never speak to again. The man who'd been erased from our lives, until now. And suddenly, I knew who Jason meant. He wanted me to ask Dad. And if that's where Jason went last, then I was about to knock on the door of a ghost. I hadn't seen my father in nearly 20 years. Not since the afternoon he packed a single duffel bag, dropped his house key on the counter, and said, without meeting our eyes, "You'll be better off." Jason was 9. I was 14. And after that, we were never the same. Mom never spoke his name again. She boxed up his photos, erased him from the walls, and poured all her energy into pretending he'd never existed. Jason, he took it harder. He'd wait by the front window every Friday night for months, convinced our dad would come back. He never did. Not for birthdays. Not for holidays. Not for anything. Until now. The address on the receipt was to his small place just outside Wilmington, a town you only drive through when you're trying to get somewhere else. I made the trip early the next morning. No hesitation. Just the gnawing ache in my chest that wouldn't shut up until I had answers. The house was plain. Beige siding. Dead grass. A flagpole with no flag. The mailbox still had M. Hastings stenciled on the side, half faded. I parked across the street and stared at the front door like it might answer before I knocked. Then I saw him, out back, standing in the dirt patch that used to be a garden, holding a mug like it was the only thing keeping his hands from shaking. Older, grayer, but unmistakable. Mark Hastings. My father. He saw me before I could move. Didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just set his mug down on the porch rail and waited. I crossed the lawn, heart pounding. He didn't say my name. Just nodded. Didn't expect to see you, he said, voice hoarse. I cut to it. Jason came here. Didn't he? He didn't blink. When? About 3 weeks before he left, he said. Showed up out of the blue. Asked questions. Got angry. What kind of questions? He hesitated. Looked away. About Liam. There it was. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. Why would Jason ask you about Liam? That's when my father did something I didn't expect. He sat down. No bluster. No deflection. Just a man who looked like he'd run out of lies. Because I told him something I should have told you both a long time ago. I didn't speak. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. You remember that year after I left? When Jason went quiet for a while. Wouldn't talk. Started having trouble in school? Yeah. He came to see me, Dad said. Without telling your mom. He showed up at my apartment and said he wanted to know why I left. I didn't know this. He was so angry. Said I was a coward. Said you hated me. He kept asking what he did wrong. My throat burned. He didn't do anything wrong, I said. I know that now, Dad said. But back then, I didn't know how to be anything but a ghost. I crossed my arms. What does this have to do with Liam? Dad rubbed his face. Jason asked me something before he left that day. He asked if I ever cheated on your mom. I blinked. Did you? Dad looked away. Yes. I staggered back a little. With who? He didn't answer right away. Then he said a name I hadn't heard in decades. Angela Mathers. A family friend. Lived 2 blocks over. She used to babysit us when Mom picked up extra shifts. Jason had always liked her. Said she told the best bedtime stories. But Mom never liked how close they were. After Dad left, Angela stayed close, too close. Some nights, Jason would disappear for hours and come back smelling like her perfume. You're saying Jason? Dad nodded slowly. I never got a test. But your mother found out. That's why I left. Not because of you boys. Because I broke something I couldn't fix. I stared at him, at the regret sitting heavy on his shoulders. So Jason went through life thinking you left him. Not because you cheated, but because he wasn't good enough. I know, Dad whispered. And I let him. I sat down, legs weak. Why now? Why tell him now? Because he came here with a child in the car, Dad said. He didn't bring him in. But he said, this is my son. At least, I think he is. Then he asked, what kind of man walks away from his kid? My throat clenched. And what did you say? He looked at me with the kind of pain that only comes from decades of silence. I told him, the kind who spends the rest of his life regretting it. He paused. And that's when he broke down. Dad said Jason sat on the porch steps and cried. Said he kept talking about how Liam wasn't really his, but how he couldn't bring himself to tell me. Said he thought he could fix it, hold the lie together, be better than the man who left. But it was getting too heavy. He didn't want Liam to grow up with a lie, or to see him the way Jason saw our dad. That's when he left the note. That's when he disappeared. I stood up. You said he came here 3 weeks before. Did he come back? Dad shook his head. No. But 2 days after he left, I got a letter. He disappeared inside the house. Came back a minute later with a folded sheet of paper. It was Jason's handwriting. Simple. Messy. Familiar. If anything happens to me, if I go quiet, if I disappear, tell Thomas the truth. Tell him I'm sorry. I tried to carry it. But the weight belongs to him now. Tell Liam the first man who called him son never stopped loving him, even when it hurt. I drove home with my father's voice still ringing in my head. And Jason's letter pressed to my chest like a wound. I had a son. A brother who tried to shield me. A mother who stayed silent. A father who broke the chain too late. And a boy who had no idea the man he called uncle was actually something much more. I didn't know how to tell him. But I knew one thing. Jason didn't run away. He let go. Because the truth wasn't his to hold anymore. It was mine. I stared at the front door for 20 minutes before I knocked. Liam was inside, probably watching cartoons, drinking from a blue sippy cup with bite marks on the rim. The same one I'd seen him use every time I visited. Only this time, I wasn't just his uncle dropping by with a toy truck. I was his father. And he didn't know. Neither did Rachel. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure which conversation scared me more. Hannah opened the door in a robe, hair damp from a shower, eyes still tired. But she knew. One look, and she knew I'd found something. You talked to Mark, she said. I nodded. He told you about Angela? I nodded again. She stepped aside without a word. Liam was in the living room, curled on the couch, blanket over his feet, eyes glued to a cartoon dog solving crimes. He looked up and grinned. Uncle Tommy. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, like my body couldn't decide whether to break or run. He jumped off the couch and ran to me, arms wide, all joy and innocence. I knelt down and hugged him, tighter than I probably should have, longer than he understood. He pulled back, confused. You okay? I smiled, swallowed hard. Yeah, buddy. Just missed you. He grinned and ran back to the couch like nothing was different. But everything was. Hannah sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. I didn't know about Angela, she said. Not until Jason told me. He came back from your dad's place and just unraveled. I sat down across from her. Why didn't he tell me? Because he didn't want you to hate him. I shook my head. I could never hate Jason. He didn't believe that, she whispered. Not really. Not deep down. We sat there in silence. The kind that's too full to breathe in. Then I said what I came there to say. I'm going to tell Liam. She blinked. Are you sure? No, I said. But I have to. She didn't fight me. Didn't try to delay it. She just nodded and wiped her eyes. That afternoon, we sat on the rug in Liam's room. Me, Hannah, him. He was playing with a set of plastic dinosaurs, narrating a battle between a T-Rex and a Stegosaurus with all the sound effects you'd expect from a 3-year-old. Liam, I said gently. He looked up. Can I tell you something really special? He nodded, mouth full of dinosaur teeth. I took a breath. You know how you call me Uncle Tommy? Yeah. I smiled. Well, I'm actually something else too. His head tilted, curious. I'm your dad. He blinked. But Jason's my dad. Hannah stepped in gently. Jason loved you very much. He chose to be your dad. But your body came from me and Tommy. Liam was quiet. So I have 2 dads. I nodded. You did. And you still have one. Another pause. Will you still read dinosaur books with me? I smiled. Every night. He crawled into my lap, still thinking. Okay, he said. Not like everything made sense, but like it could, one day. That night, I told Rachel. I didn't bury it behind excuses. Didn't try to dress it up. I told her everything. From the night with Hannah to the DNA test, the note, the letter, even the visit to my father. I expected anger. Maybe betrayal. She didn't yell, but she flinched just slightly, like the words hit a bruise I didn't know was there. For a moment, she just stared at the floor, blinking hard. Then, slowly, she looked up. Do you want to be in his life? Yes, I said. He's my son. She nodded, eyes glassy now. Another pause. And what about us? Her voice cracked just a little on us. I opened my mouth, but she held up a hand. I don't need an answer right now. I just need space. I want that too, I said. I want both, but I can't lie about who I am. Not anymore. Rachel didn't answer that night. She asked for space, and I gave it to her. Because some truths need time to settle before they stop feeling like betrayals. And some wounds can only be soothed with silence. Days passed. Liam adjusted faster than I did. He started calling me dad after a week. Not forced. Not awkward. Just natural. Like he'd always known on some level. I started coming around more. Not as a guest. As a parent. Story time. Bath time. He liked his towel warm from the dryer. And he hated the taste of grape toothpaste. He couldn't fall asleep without his stuffed raccoon. And he always asked for one more book. Always. And I gave it to him every time. Because I owed him that. Because I owed Jason that. One night, after Liam fell asleep, Hannah handed me a notebook. Jason's journal. She said she found it under the bed, wedged behind a stack of old bills. Maybe you should read it, she said. Maybe it'll help you understand why he did what he did. I took it home. Opened to the first page. And there, in Jason's messy scrawl, was the first sentence. The hardest part isn't the lie. It's living like the truth doesn't matter. I closed the book. Because I already knew the truth now. And I wasn't going to live like it didn't matter anymore. Jason's handwriting always looked like it was in a rush. Slanted letters, jagged loops, like he never expected anyone else to read what he was writing. But I read it, cover to cover. Every page of that worn notebook felt like opening a door I hadn't known existed, into the life Jason lived, the pain he carried, and the truth he kept locked behind every joke, every shrug, every nah. I'm good. He used to dodge the hard stuff. He hadn't just lied to protect me. He'd lied to protect himself, too. Because the truth he buried wasn't just that Liam was mine. It was that someone else already knew, and they were using it against him. The first mention came halfway through the notebook. Saw him again. The guy from Angela's funeral. Said he remembered Liam. Said he knew the dates didn't line up. I told him to back off, but he just smiled. Said secrets have expiration dates. That stopped me cold. Angela's funeral. She died suddenly, 2 years after Liam was born. A car accident. Jason went. Said he was paying his respects. I hadn't thought much of it, but Jason had seen someone there. Someone who knew about Liam. Someone who wasn't family. The next few entries were scattered. Jason didn't name him, just called him the Shadow. Shadow said he has paperwork, that he's seen birth records, that he knows Liam isn't mine. I told him to prove it. He said he didn't have to. Just smiled and said, we both know the math. He wants something. Not money. Leverage. He knows I'm not Thomas. He knows I won't burn the house down, but he thinks he can make me squirm. He's not wrong. I turned the page and found the entry that made my hands go cold. He said if I didn't play ball, he'd go to Thomas. Tell him everything. Destroy his life. Wreck his relationship. He said one sentence would change everything. Liam looks more like his real father every day. I told him if he hurt my brother, I'd bury him. I had to put the notebook down, because suddenly the timeline didn't add up like I thought it did. Jason didn't just vanish because he was tired. He vanished because someone was pressing him, threatening our family, using the truth like a loaded gun. And Jason, for all his flaws, refused to aim it at me. He knew Edgar would never go to Thomas himself. He didn't want truth, he wanted leverage. And once Jason disappeared, that leverage vanished with him. He'd rather disappear than hand that weapon over. I went back to Hannah, told her what I read, asked if Jason had ever mentioned anyone, a name, a face, even a description. She looked scared, not surprised. Scared. There was a man, she said quietly. He showed up once. Right after Jason moved back in with your mom. Said he worked with Angela years ago. Said he was an old friend. What did he want? He asked questions, she said. About Liam. About dates. Then he left. Jason didn't tell me much, but that night, he sat outside for hours. Didn't say a word. Did Jason say what the man's name was? She nodded. Edgar. I didn't know any Edgar, but someone did. Mom. She sat quiet for a long time when I brought it up. Then she nodded, almost like she'd been waiting for the name to come up. Edgar Willis, she said. He used to be Angela's landlord. Rumors said they were more than that. He was around a lot, even after she got sick. Angela had health problems, Mom said. Something with her liver. She was in and out of the hospital. Edgar always showed up, sometimes even before family. She hesitated, then added, there were rumors she and your father had something. Nothing confirmed. But Jason picked up on it, way before I did. That twisted something deeper inside me. If Edgar thought Liam was his, or worse, Dad's, no wonder he hovered. No wonder Jason felt cornered. I felt something twist. You think he thought Liam was his? I don't know, she whispered. But I remember something Jason said once. He said Edgar watched Liam like he was studying him, like he was trying to prove something. It hit me like a wave. This wasn't just about paternity. This was about control. Edgar knew Liam wasn't Jason's, but he didn't know who was, and he started sniffing around, watching, waiting, looking for leverage. And Jason? He played dumb, took the hit, shielded me from a man who thought he could twist bloodlines into power. And now that Jason was gone, I had to take the shield. I found Edgar's name in Angela's hospital records. He was listed as an emergency contact. That gave me an address. Small house. Overgrown yard. The kind of place where secrets settle into the wallpaper. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up. He answered the door in slippers and a cardigan, surprised but not scared. You're Thomas, he said. Not a question. I nodded. I'm Liam's father. He didn't deny anything. Didn't pretend to be confused. Just sipped his tea and said, took you long enough. He told me he knew from the beginning. Said Angela once hinted Liam wasn't Jason's, but when she passed, the truth went with her. He said he tried to push Jason, but Jason was slippery. You Hastings boys always were, he said with a smirk. I asked him what he wanted. He shrugged. People like to know where they come from. I figured someone should hold on to the story, even if no one wants to hear it. I told him to stay away from Liam. Permanently. He just smiled. You think you've got all the pieces, but you still don't know why Jason really left, do you? Then he paused. You think I'm finished? I stepped closer. If you ever come near him again, I'll make sure you disappear faster than Jason did. He didn't answer. Just closed the door. And this time, I locked it from my side in every way that mattered. That night, I read the last entry in the journal. I thought I could carry it. The weight, the lie, the shadow of someone else's past. But I'm not enough. Not for this. I wanted to be the good man, but I don't think good men disappear. If you're reading this, Tom, I'm sorry. for not telling you, for making you find it the hard way. But you deserve the truth, and Liam deserves you. Be better than me. Stay. I looked at Liam that night, curled up with his raccoon, snoring like a grown man in a child's body, and made a promise. I wasn't going anywhere. The shadows could talk. The secrets could whisper. But I wasn't leaving, because I was his father, and Jason was my brother. And that's a bond deeper than blood. Some endings don't come with fanfare. They come quietly, a phone call, a knock, a final word written in blue ink on a scrap of paper. You don't always realize when you've turned the last page, until you do. It was early October when the final call came in. A hiker in North Carolina, about 2 hours west of where Jason was last seen, stumbled across an old trailhead, one that had been closed off years ago after a rock slide. Beyond the brush, they found what was left of a rusted-out Camry. And Jason, the coroner called it an accident. Brake failure on unstable ground. No foul play. No suicide. Just one bad turn. I drove out alone. Didn't tell Hannah. Didn't tell Rachel. I just got in my truck, turned off my phone, and followed the GPS to the last place my brother breathed. It wasn't dramatic. No mountain view. No cinematic fall. Just a quiet stretch of forest, thick with pine and silence. A place you wouldn't even know existed unless you were trying not to be found. I stood at the edge of the ravine for a long time, wind in my ears, hands in my pockets, trying to picture Jason behind the wheel, looking down that slope, wondering if it was his way out, or just another dead end. I didn't cry. Not then. Not there. Because grief has its own schedule, and mine wasn't done unfolding yet. The funeral was small. Family. A few of Jason's old friends. Liam held my hand the whole time, not fully understanding what it meant, but sensing the weight. Rachel came. She stood beside me, silent, respectful. She didn't say a word about the chaos Jason left behind. Didn't mention the wedding that never happened. Just stood still while I read the eulogy I wrote the night before. I kept it simple. Jason wasn't perfect, but he tried. And sometimes, trying is the bravest thing a man can do. That was it. That was all I had left in me. Afterward, I brought Liam home, tucked him into bed, read him 2 books instead of 1. He asked if Jason was sleeping in the sky now. I said yes. Then I closed his door, went out to the porch, and finally cried. Not just for Jason, but for the years we lost, for the weight he carried, for the silence I mistook as distance, when really, it was love in disguise. A month later, Rachel and I sat on my back porch, drinking coffee like we used to before life got messy. I never blamed you, she said quietly. I looked at her. She sipped. For Liam. For Hannah. For the past. I wouldn't have blamed you if you had, I said. I know, she smiled. That's why I didn't. Then she reached over and took my hand. No promises. No rushed forgiveness. Just that quiet, steady grace I used to take for granted. She didn't move back and right away. But she didn't leave either. And sometimes, that's how rebuilding begins. I changed Liam's last name. Not legally. Not yet. But on every school form, every medical doc, every place where it mattered, he became Liam Hastings. He still asked about Jason. I didn't hide the truth. I told him Jason was brave, that he loved him like a son, that he made mistakes but never stopped trying to make them right. And when Liam's eyes went quiet, I told him something else. That's what good men do. They try. The journal is on my shelf now, next to Jason's photo. A small frame. Him in a hoodie, squinting into the sun, holding Liam in his lap. It was taken before the lie cracked open, before the truth came running in. He looks happy, and that's how I want to remember him. Not the way he left, but the way he loved. One night, Liam crawled into bed beside me, whispered through the dark, "Dad? Yeah, buddy? Are you going to disappear, too?" That's when the tears came. Quiet ones. Hot ones. I pulled him close and whispered into his curls. "No, kiddo. I'm right here. I'm always right here. And here's the thing about lies. They rot whatever you try to build on top of them. But truth? Truth hurts. Truth breaks. But it also clears the ground. It gives you something solid. And from that, you rebuild. Stronger. Wiser. Real. I'm not just a brother anymore. Not just a man who uncovered a secret. I'm a father now. A present one. And Liam? He's the best truth I never asked for. Jason thought the weight would destroy me. But he was wrong. It gave me purpose. It gave me a son. It gave me home. Rachel stepped closer, eyes wet but steady. He's yours. He always was. Then softer. And I'm still here. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it.